welcome to Forever Unbreakable, everybody. Tonight, I'm joined by the Bobby Klatt, and or as my dad calls him, Biking Bobby. Had to throw that out here for him.
Thanks, Al.
We know he's listening. So, but what I want to tell you guys a little bit about Bobby first, from my experience with Bobby. So, I first met Bobby back in the Army. We were in the same unit for a little bit of time, but we never got to deploy together. He went on separate deployment than what I was on and different things like that. But we began to build a relationship. But it wasn't until later on that we became like what I would call great friends like we are today. And that was kind of born through cycling, in a sense, more so than anything.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's where we spend more hours hanging out on bike seats than we do anywhere else, I would say. And so it takes a lot of time to hang out on a bike seat, you know, because we do see each other often, but biking has been the primary thing. And the story I want to start off with is Bobby approached me about biking around Lake Michigan. Right? How many miles is it around Lake Michigan?
It's roughly 1,000.
Yeah, so about 1,000 miles, right? I think it's just shy of 1,000, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so Bobby approaches me to bike 1,000 miles. And what was your longest ride to date?
Oh, at that time, maybe 100, 110.
Yeah,
something like that.
So just add a zero seems really easy, right? Almost.
Just dive in.
And I'm like, Bobby, what are you planning on using for a bike? And what did you own at the time?
I had a 2014 Trek Marlin, a mountain bike, inch and a half tires, knobby as could be. They were perfect for Baird's Creek.
And it wasn't even like a 29er, right, with the 29-inch wheels. These were like the smaller 26s or 26 and a half.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Had suspension, the whole works. I mean, it was a true mountain bike. Yes. Yeah.
And Bobby's like, dude, I've ridden 100 miles on this. I'm gonna ride it around Lake Michigan. I was like, you're an idiot. Have you heard of a road bike?
Absolutely.
Like, the invention's been around for a while. And that was kind of when you first bought your first road bike, was around that time, and we went online and got you a Trek Mendone that is now, you know, rest in peace, bless its soul. It was a great bike, but has seen the end of its life.
Absolutely.
But I mean, like, talk about why you had this idea or ambition for the pedal around Lake Michigan, which to date has not happened yet.
Correct.
And still needs to happen at some point.
And I think it will one day, but I think it's just the fact of doing something a little bit bigger, something a little crazy, right? There's when you start dealing with anything over really 100 miles, it starts to be, I think, a touch crazy. The 1,000-mile idea to me is it just resonates. I really like the idea. It's just something about the number of 1,000 miles on a pedal bike, continuous. Like, yeah. But I don't know, just going around Lake Michigan. I've never heard of anybody doing it. I'm sure it's been done, but there's always just been intrigue because it's, quite frankly, because it's there. You know. Yeah.
Dude, and it's doable, right? Because there's
absolutely,
you've got the bridge to get around at the top,
yep.
Through the Mackinac Bridge or whatever.
And it's the only place you can't cycle. Actually, they won't let you bike across Mackinac Bridge.
So for that part, you'd have to get a ride from one side to the other.
I'd have to hitch a ride. It's the only place.
So you still can't actually bike all the way around.
Technically, you can't.
But close. Like, Mackinac Bridge is like
2 miles?
I don't even think it's that.
Yeah. So it would be all but that.
Which is probably the chunk of the 1,000 miles that's missing.
Right. Yeah, it's 998. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Mackinac.
But I mean, it's just an idea of like, hey, I want to go out and achieve this. And it's funny how, like, and now you say like 100 miles is nothing on a bike, right?
Right.
Because now, and we'll get into what you're training for later on in this episode and why you're doing that. But at one point, a 100-mile bike ride was not just a 100-mile bike ride. Like,
no.
And to many people, a century ride is one of the biggest accomplishments they'll ever have.
Absolutely.
And like, so what I want to talk about, I guess, a little bit is what goes on in one's mind over the course of 100 miles on a bike ride?
It's almost what doesn't go on in somebody's mind over the 100 miles. It is, I mean, really, I pull from everywhere. I mean, there's you think about your past, you think about finishing. I mean, especially the last 20 miles. That's all you think about is that finish line, the beer at the end, the food that you get to eat. But really, anything and everything that you've ever thought of, I mean, will cross your mind at that time. I go through a lot of my history, my past on the bike, and things that I'm appreciative of, things that I've done right, that I've done wrong. You know, a lot of self-analyzation when you're dealing with 4, 5, 6, 7 hours on a bike. You got a lot of alone time upstairs. So
yeah, because like you and I are basically not doing our 100-milers under 5 hours.
No, by all means.
You know, that's a 20-mile-an-hour average.
Yep.
And let's face it, we like the little rest stops.
Of course. I'll dive in. Those sub sandwiches are fantastic.
Dude, they revitalize you.
Absolutely.
Like, they give you, you know, they reinstill in your mind that like, hey, in 20 more miles, I'm getting back off the bike seat. Because
for sure,
especially early on in cycling, like a lot of it has to do with comfort in the saddle more than just pain in the legs. Like I find myself wanting to stop cycling and get off the bike sooner because of the pain in my butt.
Absolutely.
More than the pain in my legs.
And when you do that, the first time you get off the bike, I've learned that every time you do it, or the first time you do it, it ends up being, now I want to do it every 10 miles or 15 miles.
Yeah.
So you'll go the first 40, 50, 60, and you're like, okay, my butt hurts, right?
Yep.
But at the end of the day, like the first time you get off the bike, it becomes a habit moving forward.
So now, and I think when we talk about this, you're going to end up rewinding us back in time. But I want to skip ahead a little bit. So Bobby comes to me with this idea to bike around Lake Michigan. And I'm like, no, dude, like, great idea. But A, you need to get a road bike. And so then, so we meet at Fox Harbor one night because you told me about wanting to bike across America. And I was like, dude, if you're going to bike across America, you have to do it with a race.
Yeah.
Because you can go out and bike across America and that's cool, but it's much cooler to do it with a Ram. And then you can fundraise and they help you out with the fundraising aspect of it. And then you'll actually like be recognized as somebody who biked across America and not just know for yourself that you did it.
Correct.
But it'll be validated that you have in fact biked from, you know, San Diego to Washington, D.C. And so that race is called the RAM, RAAM, Race
Right.
Across America. And in order to do that, you have to qualify. And that's a 400-mile bike ride. And so you got the bike. You've had the bike for what, like 9 months, a year when you went and did RAM?
Yeah, I mean, I bought the bike. We had that conversation at Fox Harbor, I think in like late October, beginning of November. And a couple of weeks later, came over. I bought the bike, and it was at your house. Right?
Yeah.
We used your eBay account, in fact.
Yeah, we used my eBay account.
I didn't even have one.
I built it as much as I could. And this
Right.
was back when I didn't know really as much as I know about bikes today.
Correct.
And so we still had to take it to Stadium Bike and get the things that I couldn't build on it built.
Sure. And, you know, I made the mistake of buying a sweet new toy in November that I can't use until May, right? Mm-hmm. But we did the research and we realized that 400 was something that came into Minnesota in August of the next year. So, yeah, I had the bike maybe 8 months. No, about 10 months, I guess.
Yeah.
But come January is when I actually signed up for the race. So never even ridden a road bike other than, I think, the 2 blocks I rode it around your old neighborhood.
And no real cycling experience. Because there's
no.
mountain biking. And mountain biking I consider different than cycling.
And it wasn't even a mountain biking experience. I was a joy rider as far as cycling until like 3 days ago, to be honest with you. I mean, it's insane how quickly you turn the page from that mountain bike style to the road bike.
Because you flipped it overnight.
Well, I had to. I signed up for a race that was 8 months away, and I'd never ridden a road bike, and now I have to bike 400 miles.
And so your only 100-miler at this time was one on a mountain bike.
Correct, with a buddy.
Yeah.
With my buddy, my longtime friend Chad Duncan, him and I think it was somewhere in Door County. I don't know if we got dropped off in Egg Harbor or where it was specifically, but then we rode down to Menasha. So it was like 110, 112 miles.
And it wasn't a race. It was just just no like entry fee. It was just, hey, me and a buddy are going to hang out and we're going to try and accomplish
I was still smoking cigarettes, like on the bike ride. You know what I mean? Like I don't, you know, we stopped and we had, you know, a couple of diners. We had some food. There was no urgency. It took us like 14 hours to go, you know. 100.
Yeah, which would never qualify you for anything.
No, absolutely not. No.
Like the finish line would be packed up and gone by the time you showed up.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah.
So not knowing really what a 100-mile ride feels like.
Yeah.
Because to put yourself on a bike seat with zero suspension for 100 miles is very different than, stopping at the gas station 10 miles in for a Monster and then getting back on your bike and dicking around and just enjoying it. Right?
Drastically different. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you had to learn, cycling fundamentals, like what is drafting? How do I draft?
Right.
And then knowing that in RAM, you're not going to be able to draft because there's support vehicles and all the other stuff. So like, what were you thinking when you signed up for 400 miles? And then what were you thinking, hours after you just spent that money, knowing you couldn't have the money back?
I was really gung-ho at the time. I was just excited to like take on the challenge itself. I knew that it wasn't going to be easy and that it would keep me focused. So I was amped up. But there was, I don't care if it was January, March, or, the race was in August. I don't care if it was January, March, or July. There was plenty of times where I'm like, what the hell did I just do? Like, I don't want to bike anymore. I wasn't I didn't have a trainer at the time.
You were going to the YMCA because you would send me Snapchat videos.
Yeah.
You'd be like,
dude, I wasn't even training on my bike.
Just putting down effort at the Y.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, you still haven't ridden your bike.
No, it was about base miles and just pedaling is all I thought it was. And there was no direction really. You gave me a lot of good tips as far as like, keeping my knees in, for instance, cause
be more aerodynamic.
Yeah, right,
You're a bigger shouldered guy.
You get more power doing it this way, right? But outside of like your little tidbits and, a couple other guys, Adam Proust, we rode with, that was really the extent of the knowledge that I had. So yeah, I beat my head against the wall a couple of times. Like, what did I sign up for? But for the most part, I just thought about the finish line. That's what kept me going, man. It was just like 400 miles. Let's see if we can do it. And it's a good starting point. Yeah,
because like when you signed up for the 400 miler, you did not have the financial backing that most people who are doing that race have, right?
Correct.
They're showing up with 2 or 3 bikes, 3 or 4 sets of wheels.
Absolutely.
And rear derailleurs, front derailleurs, new shifters, new cables. Like
I brought that mountain bike that we talked about
as
with road bike
backup,
tires as backup to the 400-mile bike race. Just dumb.
And if you had had to get on that thing, there is 0% chance of you finishing.
It would have been a dogfight.
Because you were already pushing it close to the time cap.
Yeah,
allowable time.
I completed it. In 32 hours. It was allotted. The time that was allotted. It took me 31 hours and 8 minutes. So I had 52 minutes to spare. I could have climbed a couple of more hills, but that would have been about it.
And so like we'll fast forward to the race because this is like some of my favorite stuff. Because I'm sitting there and I've got the tracker and I'm like, I'm a Bobby Klatt #1 fan, who can't be at the race, right? Because truly, like the guys that I got to give credit to for being #1 fans have to be your crew.
Oh yeah,
because
undoubtedly.
To go out and sacrifice what they sacrificed to crew you, for 32 hours nonstop, no sleep, like that's the #1 fans
for sure.
And so but talk about that race, like driving from here to there and what's going on in your head and what you're thinking about and getting to the start line and seeing guys who are, we'll say like premium or premier cyclists, like on the line, right? Like legit people who are borderline professional or professional cyclists. Yeah,
there was a mix for sure.
Yeah.
Going out there, I was pretty amped up. The 2 guys that came with me are going to, they're going to be with me here in the future for the race we're planning for. But those guys kept it light. They understand who I am as a person, and they really they had a lot of fun, a lot of cracking jokes and making fun of me and whatever along the way. So I had a pretty good mindset going into the morning of, right? They did all the homework. They stayed up late the night before, getting the navigation ready and making sure that.
Yeah, because the last thing you want to do is make a wrong turn. Because there's no big signs. It's not like a marathon where there's cops blocking off intersections.
Right.
Like you have to stop for traffic.
For sure. These guys navigated every turn, and there was 6 or 8 pages. That a couple hundred turns throughout 400 miles. So they had to be on point to get us ready to do this. So they did what they did the night before. They talked to some of the crew members and from other teams. And I remember waking up the next morning and feeling good, had the butterflies, made a phone call to Mom, who's the only person I talked to that morning. and just, said we're good, like gonna go.
And she's got to be so proud of you.
Oh, she's super proud, but she was nervous, because 400 miles on the road and we're in the middle of traffic and
you got to pedal at night in the dark.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, it was
you pedal 32 hours. There's no breaks. Like
no. I mean, I probably slept an hour, maybe 90 minutes over that 31 hours. But I do remember kicking it off. So I was one of the first ones to sign up for the race, the very first one. And I remember I was the second guy to leave the start line. So there was 5 o'clock start time. It leaves in 1 minute increments. And at 5:01, I started. So we kick off, and I'm like, all right, here we go. You're pretty amped up. It's 5:01 in the morning.
I'm almost in first place.
Yeah, right? Enjoy second place while it lasts. And all of a sudden, like, one guy blows right by me. And I'm like, man, I can't push out any power. I'm like, I don't know what's happening here. Yeah. Another guy blows right by me. And it dawns on me.
And at the time, you don't even have a power meter.
No, I don't even have a Garmin. Like I'm wearing I'm using a tack. For those that don't know what that is, it's just a magnet that spins around on your wheel.
You can buy them for $20 at Walmart. I bet they're not even $20.
I think mine was $7. I mean, it probably got it from like Aldi's or Costco or something.
And this is what I mean by like not having the financial backing,
right,
or knowledge to own a Garmin, have a power meter. A backup set of wheels, and we'll get into that.
Yeah. This was just straight piss and vinegar. Just go, right? Can you do it or can you not do it? I mean, that was it.
Yeah.
But we get in, and I think we're 3 miles in, and I realized I never put air in my tires. So there I am. I'm like, I'm running 80 psi on 120.
And you should be somewhere around a 115 to 120 psi on your tires.
Right. And I remember a guy cruising by me in a Velomobile, which is like one of those low riding. It's hard to explain, but it's almost like a race car type bicycle. And
where you sit down in like a lazy boy.
It looks
like.
Similar to that. It just looks like a little rocket. And he goes by me as I like have my bike upside down, filling my tires with air. And he's just like, oh man, that sucks. Crew got all mad. They're like, screw that guy. I'm like, well, no, it does suck. I mean, he's right. I was so amped up. They did everything. But the air in the tires is on me. I mean, that's the bike preparation. That's me, the van, the navigation, 100%. That's those guys, right? I screwed up.
Dude, and we're watching, I'm watching you on the, tracking system. And Bobby goes from second place to last in the first 20 miles of the race.
Yeah.
And you can't text him because he's on a bike. So it's like, oh, fuck. Right. Is Bobby that bad?
Yeah, nobody knew what to expect. I mean, we rode together that summer.
I had never gone past, I had done Ironman before that. So I had never gone past 112 miles.
Okay.
I had no idea what anything was like after 112 miles. And I was like, first 20 miles and he's already, he is fucked.
Yeah, for sure. I was nervous, but I'd seen all these guys just turn and burn, and I knew that I didn't have those capabilities. Yeah. So I literally just, I set it at 15 miles an hour in my head and on my tack monitor, my $7 tack. And that's what I stuck to from the get-go. And I feel like it ended up turning out to be a good thing because, I finished the race and I had some left in the tank at the end. But it was disheartening watching just guy after guy. And I think there's even a girl there that just blew right by me.
Especially at your first you had done what, 2 centuries going into that?
No, leading up to that I did.
Because didn't you do the base shore?
I did 100K, so 64 miles in Madison, and then I did 1 century, and that was before the base shore was started.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, it was the Door County, the spring, not the Door County fall, but the spring.
Yeah. Yep.
So leading up to, and then I did 1 ride around Lake Winnebago. It was like 135 miles.
Yeah, and you had like 2 night rides or something, or 1 night ride.
Yeah, 1 night ride. That was only like 4 hours. It was just kind of to get used to.
Yeah, no, it was just to experience what it's like to pedal at night.
Right, exactly.
And use a headlight and.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, to say that I was ready. There's no way. But
prepared would be an understatement.
Yeah,
just guts and hard work because you did do a good amount of hard work before, and now right now. In the process that you're in right now, and we're going to talk about what you're trying to do here in the future. But right now, you're learning what the work that you should have been putting in is.
Yeah, night and day difference.
So talk about now we're past mile 20 of the bike. And talk about what's going on in your head? What starts to happen, as you get hours into the bike? Because the race started at, 5 in the morning or something?
Yeah, 5:01 I kicked off. Yeah, and I had till, I think, 1 o'clock the next day or something like that.
Yeah, it was mid-afternoon.
Yeah, to finish. But, yeah, so the next thing that really comes to mind is I hit a staple of all things, and it popped my tire. It was mile 108. I was pretty amped up to get to, like, mile 100 because it's just a benchmark. You're about 25% of the way through.
Huge benchmark.
Yeah, and it's just like, all right, I was feeling really good at that time. We were actually making really good time. And we hit that flat. Well, the crew guys, bless their souls, I mean, they're great guys. They just don't know anything about bikes. So I jumped out the bike and, of course, I'm fixing my own
Which
tire.
everybody else's crew has probably got a mechanic on it who's like,
undoubtedly.
And they're not even swapping the tire out at that point. They're just changing rim, throw a new rim on, or they're handing the guy an entirely new bike. And we'll fix this. Enjoy your ride.
Exactly. Yep. And that's what it came down to is, I mean, we had to do our own. We were limited.
Yeah.
So that happened, and we had some jokes and some laughs about it, like how the hell do you hit a staple of all things? I mean, I understand a nail. I mean, just a staple was sticking out of my tire. We're like, it's garbage, right?
Yeah.
And then we got it fixed in a pretty good time. It doesn't take long for those who ever change the tire to change a tire. 5-7 minutes, whatever it was, and back on the bike. But mile 200, I remember. We were just over the Minnesota-Wisconsin border, and we stopped at a gas station. This is the first time I really felt like that heavy fatigue and that tiredness and the like, oh, what the hell did I sign up for? Starting to catastrophize a little bit, and and I remember sitting at a gas station. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try some things. So we went and got a Mountain Dew, and a lot of people are like, well, Mountain Dew or cheeseburgers. When you're doing these things, those things are acceptable because you're just burning.
Absolutely acceptable.
You're just burning up everything that you're putting in your body. It's more about caloric intake than it is about anything. At that point. As long as it's cool with your stomach, put it.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is like, how do you consume food? And we'll talk more about the nutrition piece.
Yeah.
But how do you consume food and not get gut rot and not get an upset stomach and not have to poop?
Right.
Because you can't afford these bigger breaks.
Exactly. Time on the bike. I mean, when you do the ultra distance, it's how do we keep this guy on the bike?
Yeah. And that's when we talk about the pain in the butt. Like, how do you get rid of the saddle sores and all of that, and condition your butt? Because the last thing you want to do is have something that really shouldn't have much effect on your ability to achieve it or not.
Right.
Achieve it, because it gets into your head. When your ass gets sore, like, it is in your head. It makes me want to quit.
It's the worst. It's the absolute worst. Like, during the 400 itself, I was actually blessed. I don't know if it was the seat that I ran or if it was just the shorts I had. I didn't really have much for saddle sores, right? Don't get me wrong, my ass was sore pretty much the whole ride, but the saddle sores themselves I didn't have to deal with. What the bigger part for me was the hands. My hands became numb after a couple 100 miles, and I was just constantly shaking them out. Right?
Yeah.
And that's slowing you down.
Dude, I forgot all about the hands.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, to this day, here we are 2 years later, and I can run my pointer finger up the side of my hand, and I can feel the nerve damage from it because I didn't have enough positions to put my hands.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the core strength to hold myself up. I was locked into one position more or less for 400 miles. And I thought I did a lot of research leading up to this thing about, preventative things, right? How can I stop saddle sores, and how can I? Never once did I read anything about numbness in your hands, right? And to this day, I still haven't.
Dude, but there's very few people that are doing endurance cycling, right?
Yeah,
endurance
the ultra
cycling
side.
Yeah. It's such a small group. Once you break 100, I would say once you break 112 miles, right? Because you have the 100-mile centuries, and then you've got the Ironman distance.
Yeah.
And once you get past that 112, the crowd just fucking drops. It's like
for sure.
Cliff edge. Because everybody's like, that's stupid.
Yeah, it's a touch crazy. Like I said, it's not normal by all means. And that's part of what makes me strive for it, though.
Yeah.
I'm not an endurance athlete. I run around at 6 foot, 215, 220. I've always been kind of the jock sport guy.
Yeah, dude, you're like
softball, baseball, football.
Yeah, you're the guy who's cranking home runs.
Well,
right?
or at least trying to, right?
You're like the linebacker in football. Like, you're not the wide receiver or cornerback, the little skinny guy who runs up and down.
I've always been a bigger guy.
Yeah, I'm going to get in and make the hit.
The endurance thing is completely new to me. I mean, I just picked that up in the last couple of years because of the cycling. So that whole aspect is just, it's all a big learning experience for me, for sure.
Yeah, and you know, and that's where it gets into that nutrition piece too. Is like we've talked about numerous times of like what works and what doesn't work, and how can you sustain the required energy level needed to keep going, you know, for hours on top of hours on top of hours. Because 5 hours is one thing.
Right.
32 hours is a whole different ball game. Mm-hmm. Because anything you digest, you're going to actually get to use. On a 5-hour race, you know, I believe the stuff that you're digesting at hour 3, you're probably not getting into your system effectively.
Yeah, and you know,
by the end of 5 hours.
You can burn through, you know, all your nutrition and still hang on to the bike for 5 hours. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like you can tough things out for 2, 3, 4 hours at a time. Once you start getting to 8, 10, 12, 15, 30, you know, you need to be consistent. It's something that I'm going to be honest at this point is still probably one of my bigger struggles. Yeah. I haven't found that balance of I like hard food. A lot of these ultra guys, they love drinking.
Goo packs.
Yeah,
drinking.
And they drink all their nutrition.
Hundreds of grams of carbohydrate.
Yeah. I haven't found that balance as far as what I can and cannot do, you know. And so that's going to be a big part of the next upcoming months for me is dialing that in because as you know, as somebody that just went through you know, the Ironman.
Dude, super bonk.
Dude,
super like
it'll end you. It will stop you. You know, that will put you down. So it's one of those things you have to perfect, or at least get close to perfection. You have to know what your body likes. So they say, you know, train like you're gonna, you know, like you. Well, what do they say? They say put it, you know, the race day plan, you know, while training.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
You can't try anything new on race day.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was stupid going into Ironman. Like I had perfected it going into the world record. Not perfected.
Right.
But I had my best result going into the world record. Like I had locked in my nutrition and I was so beyond strict on my eating plan. And for Ironman, I was like, I'm a fucking world record holder.
Let's wing it.
Like, I got crushed. I got my soul crushed at the, Horribly Hilly. I got my soul crushed there.
Yeah.
Again, I believe was a testament to my nutrition.
Okay.
And then again at Ironman, just not, you know, in Ironman was a multitude of things that led into the day of the race. But ultimately, like, I tell people I'm like the hardest part of endurance sports is nutrition.
Yeah.
It's easy to train. Like I love
the easiest part.
I love the training because we have our Tuesday and Thursday morning bike rides.
Right.
And so anybody who's listening, if you're a cyclist and you want to come out and ride, we ride at the slowest person's pace. It doesn't matter who comes out and rides with us. And we always have a great time. And now we've got a freaking rock solid group.
Yeah.
You know, we probably got like 7 or 8 people on the text message group that goes out for morning rides.
Yeah.
And we meet Tuesdays and Thursdays at somewhere between 5 and 5:15 in the morning, and we go on an hour bike ride. We go 30 minutes out, 30 minutes back. Doesn't matter what the distance is, just in the saddle for an hour. And it's really like where your cycling kind of began, you know, and learning. And I am beyond thankful for those morning rides with you and Adam is where it started. It was just me, you, and Adam.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it almost started just out of, you know, coincidence really, because like I was more of a night cyclist at the time and Adam was a morning cyclist.
Right.
And they were like, hey, come ride with me and Adam one morning.
Yeah. I just ran into Adam at the Y one day and I'm like, hey, he's like, yeah, you're pedaling, man? I'm like, yeah, I'm pedaling. He's like, let's do it, you know?
Dude, and it's
happened quick.
Yeah, and it's been nonstop fun since.
For sure.
You know, and I know you're going out tomorrow, and I mean this is November now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're going out to ride tomorrow to log more miles, outside miles.
Yeah,
you know,
4 hours tomorrow.
Yeah, which is huge. But let's get back into the race because so you had the flat tire and then you get moving again.
Right.
And then what happens?
Well, yeah, so I'm at that gas station and we're trying to some different things. And I made the mistake of cuz I was just dog tired. You know, I was probably 13, 14 hours in and 200 miles
it's Mountain Dew.
So I do the Mountain Dew thing, but I also buy caffeine pills. and I pop a couple of those like thinking, hey, this can't hurt.
Yeah, stuff you've never tried.
Never tried it. I don't know.
Because this is new territory. Everything after 140 miles is new territory.
Brand new, yeah. Uncharted. So here we are, you know, and I pop a couple of those, and I'm like, okay, and I feel the little caffeine buzz, and I'm like, yeah, good call, you know. And we're cruising through these like bluffs, big, you know, it's like a 60-mile stretch down like the Mississippi, and it's just gorgeous, right? The sunset, it was just beautiful. Like, you just dialed in. You lose yourself in some of those moments. You really enjoy that. Even 250 miles in, you're like, fuck yeah, this is what we're doing. You know, this is awesome. But then I crossed the Mississippi and I got back into Minnesota, and you gotta climb right away. And it's not mountainous, but there's some heavy climbs. And I remember climbing and a little bit of an S curve, not switchbacks, but S curve, you know. And I bet you it took me 40 minutes to climb this one hill. I mean, it was pretty lengthy, and I got to the top and I just puked. And I puked everything out of me. Which
is the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah, because you lose everything. And I know for a fact, I didn't know it at the time, but looking back, it was because of those caffeine pills. It just upset my stomach. And it got me kind of jittery. And now you're applying all this work and this effort. And I got to the top and I puked. And I remember literally it being, I don't know if it was 1 o'clock in the morning or 1:30. Shortly after, I puked crawling into the van. And Josh and Rich, my two crew guys, they're just like, yeah, boy, this might be it. Like this might be, he's gonna throw a flag. I had to go into the van, and I just sat there, and I'll never forget that feeling, because whether it's been military, whether it's been cycling, wherever I've pushed myself physically, that was the moment that I knew that I took another step. You know what I mean? I went past what my level ability that I thought I had. Yeah. It was past.
Dude, the body is stronger than the mind. The mind is what makes the body start and stop. And it's a remarkable thing. And to me, it's the coolest place to find is those breaking points.
For sure.
And then finding a way to take another step.
You'll learn something. I can tell you that much. You'll learn something, and it's something that I carry with me to this day. And I remember, so Josh and Rich, I'm like, just leave me alone. I'm gonna sit in the van. And my buddy Josh came in at the time, and he's just, he's hand me a water. He's like, start drinking this, and just start talking to me, coaching me up again, just being a bro, being a crew guy, good crew guy, right? And he's like, hey, we got to do this, like you just got to get on the bike and you got to go. Well, sure enough, you get on the bike, you get going, you start feeling good, And I remember that being a pretty big turning point. So then we're cruising along, and I remember daylight. So now we're probably about 20 miles in. Let's say we're 80 out from the finish, and it's right as like the sun's coming up, and it's tough because your body thinks you're supposed to be waking up, right? Your internal clock says, "Why are you still awake?"
Yeah,
and now you've been biking for, at this point, a day straight, 25 hours, and we actually called headquarters, the Ram headquarters, and said, hey, when do we actually finish this? What time? Because we were starting to do the math, and because I finished so close to the finish that we were like, boy, I don't know that we can do this, right?
Yeah.
And we thought it was noon.
Yeah,
so we thought we had 31 hours.
Me, so I was like, I was super panicked when I was watching at the end.
Yeah, so we did the 31 hour, we had that in our head, and we're like, boy, we're starting to cut it like really close. And then all of a sudden, they're like, get on the bike, we'll figure this out. So I start pedaling, and I'm beating myself up at this time. Like, shit, how do I go this far and I'm not going to be able to make it, and how am I going to look my buddies in the face? You start going through the bad thoughts.
Absolutely, and you're like, what excuse can I come up with? Like,
right, yeah.
Should I just crack my frame and
right? Should I just dive into a ditch? Like, it's weird how your mind works.
Or just like road rash myself, or run into a parked car.
Well, then everybody will understand that I failed. Instead of just failing.
Because you want an excuse.
Right.
Whenever you're going to fail at something, the one thing that I've learned is you want an excuse.
Absolutely.
You look for one. You want something to blame. You want to be able to blame it on, it was too hot this day and everybody was failing, or I fucking had, I crashed my bike, or my nutrition failed me and I got sick, right?
Right.
So the first thing you're looking for is an excuse to quit.
Absolutely.
At that point, right? Like, I need a legit excuse to just stop.
No doubt.
Right there. And I found myself there on the bike at numerous times now. I found myself there during Ironman on the bike.
Yeah.
Like, I knew when I got off Ironman that I was done. And I was like, fuck, I don't have to do this. Like, I've got 2 Ironmans already. I've accomplished this.
Right.
And then, so I was like, so that was going to be my excuse. Like, I've done this already. I had a bad day. I quit.
Right.
And at Horribly Hilly, I had never done that before. So I was much like you at the Ram qualifier, where I was like, I need a legit excuse to not do this. And I feel like I had a couple of excuses I could have used, and ultimately I failed. Like, I couldn't do another rotation of the pedals if somebody paid me.
Right.
Like, I was done.
But you did.
Yeah. But I mean, so, but you get to those points. So, like,
you do.
You're at the point where you're just searching for an excuse to not go on.
Exactly. And And they come, they pull up alongside me and they say, "Hey, it's 1 o'clock. You got another hour." And we're like, "Okay, well, let's see what we can do." And I remember bobbing and weaving through, the countryside in Minnesota. And then all of a sudden we see another van. And, these vans have flashers on them, like the hazard flashers, like on top of the vehicle, bicycles ahead, signs. And we're like, "Oh shit, it's another racer." We're like, we haven't seen a racer in a day. Like, I mean, since my tires were flat, right?
Yeah, since the very start.
Wait a second. And I remember my buddy being like, "Okay, now we're racing. Because I took off like a bat out of hell. The next 40 miles were like my first 40 miles. Like, that's all I needed to see. And I'm like, all right, let's go get it. And everything changed. And from there on, we got to the point where we were like 20 miles out. Stopped at a gas station. We knew that was going to be our last stop. I just had to go to the bathroom. Finally, I had to take a shit after a day on the bike. I'm like, oh, man.
And eating random shit.
Yeah, just like it's gas station sandwiches, cheeseburgers, Subway. I mean, you name it. So I'm like, I got to go take care of this. But we knew that was the last stop. And sure enough, we got about 8 miles out, and they're like, "All right, man, you're on your own," because I knew where we were at that time.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to be alone. I wanted to do, just be me, just
embrace it.
Yeah, I did.
Take it all in and
take
experience those last 8 miles,
right.
The last 30, 45 minutes of cycling.
Yeah, no communication. I shut the music off, and quite frankly, I got pretty emotional at that point. That was the first time, I was emotional talking to the guys throughout the race, but, at certain times, but that was sheer emotion when I knew that, like, holy shit, like, we're going to do this thing,
Dude.
And yeah, it turned out I ended up pulling into, it's funny, you do the 400-mile race, right? You expect this, like, oh yeah, this guy just crushed 400 miles on a bike. I remember pulling into Steve Miller Band. I'm a joker. Playing on the radio, and there was I think 6 people, including my crew guys, to greet me at the finish. The Ram organizers, the race organizers, and then my 2 guys. It was like, oh well, that was great. All 6 of you, huh? You finish an Ironman.
An Ironman's got
thousands of people cheering you on all day, right?
Yep.
And you just think you play the finish line out in your head a million times prior to doing something.
And you think it's gonna be
glorious.
A million people.
Glorious, million people. Like the whole works, right? No, it was 6 people. But at that point, you don't even give a shit. You're so exhausted. I remember crossing. I'm just like,
dude, and you're so proud.
I was proud, but I had no.
You look back at all the hard work, and you're like,
yeah,
I did this.
Yeah,
like it almost makes it greater when it's just you standing.
It's more intimate, because
exactly.
It was just my crew guys that I got the hug at the end. I'll take that with me for a long time, forever. You know what I mean?
And that's what I tell people. I'm like, some of my finishes to training days are better than finishing an actual accomplishment.
Yeah, I would agree with
because
that.
When I was training for the 100-miler, I went on a couple of rucks by myself.
Yeah.
In freezing cold temps, sleet, snow, rain, like all sorts of garbage. And I would finish, it might be 14 miles with the ruck on or 10 miles even, right?
Yeah.
And I would finish that and just have gutted through absolute misery to finish it. And I would be like, I am so fucking proud.
Yeah.
Of finishing this, and I'm the only person there. Like it's me by myself.
It's
there's nobody there when you finish a training ride.
Those things,
or run, or whatever it is.
Those things are that's what keeps you going. That's what makes you a world record breaker. That's what made me finish 400 miles.
Yeah,
it's those days. Nobody sees that. Sure, we can post about it on Facebook. Nobody gets it.
Nobody understands it
unless you're doing it.
And that's what makes it so unique and so cool. Like even when you see it on Strava, you're like, "Fuck, that dude just did that today."
Right.
But you don't really get it unless you're there with
unless
them.
You do it.
Like when I ride in the cold days with you, like. There's a whole different experience to that than it is when it's nice out and we're in a draft line cruising along.
right.
Like not even pedaling, when we make Eric Johnson come and pull us all day.
Right. Yeah, I don't like riding with Eric. I have to work way too hard.
No, dude. I get right behind him and I'm like, pull horse.
All right.
But it's super rewarding. And that's what I would imagine was at the end of that qualifier was that like intimacy of like, I don't care who knows about this.
Right.
The fact is, like, I did it, and it means so much to me.
For sure.
And I did it for myself or for
the team.
Good of why I was doing it.
For the team. I mean, at that time, it's funny. It's probably the thing I love the most about ultra cycling, and not that I've done a lot of it thus far, but is the team It's an individual sport, but it can't be done without a team. So the relationship, I mean, the guys that I brought with me to Minnesota were a couple of my best friends already, right?
Yeah.
But it's like now they're almost like military guys.
It tightens the bond.
It tightens it so it's unreal. I feel like they've sacrificed, their time, their money, their resources, energy, everything to make this happen. And without them, it couldn't have happened. Yeah. I love the fact of relationship building and what this sport does with that. And I can talk a little bit more to that as we talk about what's coming up here because it's happening now again. But it doesn't matter if they're close buddies or if they're some stranger. The relationships that get built in this sport because it needs to be a team is the coolest thing thus far.
Dude, and I'm glad you bring that up because, one of the things that I've said from day one of the podcast is you are unbreakable because of the people you surround yourself with.
Absolutely.
Like, those guys wouldn't let Bobby Klatt fail.
No.
Right? Because Bobby Klatt was in the van thinking to himself, like, fuck, I just puked, I'm done.
I was waving that flag.
And
man.
Josh is handing you water, right? Josh was who was doing it?
Yeah, Josh was at the time, yeah.
Yeah, so he's handing you water and giving you the pep talk that you need, like, Bobby, get back in the game.
Right.
Because I remember I was back here, and I remember you called me because you had busted a spoke on your bike.
Yeah.
He didn't even bring that up.
No, I forgot about that, actually, yeah.
And you called me, and you're like, can I do it? And I was like, Bobby, I've got some doubts. like, ride it and see if you break another one. And you broke a second spoke.
Yeah, and that's where it stopped, thankfully.
And then I was like, I probably wouldn't ride your bike anymore.
Right.
But
The way you put it at the time, it was brilliant because you're like, hey, Bobby, either you're kind of cashing in this race because otherwise you're riding a mountain bike. Or you're gonna, my tires were, I think the rims themselves were like $1,200. Or you're gonna blow out, $600 in rim. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Either you're gonna sacrifice a $600 tire, or you're going to ride a mountain bike and not finish this thing. Well, the hell with the tire. Let's see how long this thing gets me. Thankfully, it got me the whole way.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I mean, that was another point in the race where there was severe doubt.
Absolutely.
And you and the guys that were there on the ground with you, you and your team, were who determined that, hey, we're going to press on.
Absolutely.
We're going to press on. Just like when they said, Bobby Klatt, get back on your bike, brother, and we'll figure it out.
Right.
Like, we're going to figure it out from here.
Yeah.
You just get on your bike and get some distance because we need distance right now.
So instrumental. Those guys, I can't think of them enough. It's incredible what they did. And it's needed. Without a solid crew, you're only as good as your crew. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely, man. And I just think that that's super significant, especially as we talk about, like, the moving forward process of what you're going to do next. And I think actually, like, now is a good time to talk that, and we'll talk what makes Bobby unbreakable. But let's talk about like what's next. So you did the 400 miler, and then you basically took a year off of serious distances.
Right.
You did a couple 100 milers and 100 plus rides and stuff. But what's coming for Bobby?
Well, we're going to do the Race Across the West. So that falls underneath the Race Across America umbrella, right? It was the Ram Challenge Series, and then there's the Race Across the West. And that is a 930-mile trek, roughly, from Oceanside, California to Durango, Colorado.
So what is the starting elevation?
I don't know, -5.
Yeah. Like 0 feet of elevation.
It's right on the Pacific. I mean.
And what's the ending elevation?
I think I end at 8,500.
So even over the whole distance, you climb 8,500 feet of elevation more than you'll get to descend over the course of the whole race. Like, I would much rather go from Durango to San Diego.
Of course.
Because then you're down.
It's all downhill.
You get a lot more descent. So like, I want to paint that picture first, is that this race, unlike most races where you start and finish at the same spot,
right,
so you get zero, additional gain. This, like, at the end, you're going to be 8,500 feet higher, which is thinner air, less oxygen at the end of the race.
Yeah.
At the end of 930 miles. So, I mean, that takes a whole different look at nutrition and planning.
Absolutely.
Going into it, because we live in Green Bay where it's like 230 feet above sea
right.
level.
There's nothing here.
So we get great air.
Right. Yeah. And that's, it's like 50, I think it's either 54 or 56,000 feet of climbing over the 900.
Yeah,
so it's like 10 miles. But it honestly, not even my biggest concern. I feel like...
And this is what I think is awesome, because you're going to go down and try and acclimate to your biggest concern
it's
a couple of days before, which is smart planning, unlike the Bobby Klatt of the 400 miler or the ride around Lake Michigan.
Correct. Yeah. It's so after we hit the Coastal Range Mountains, which is it's immediate climb. You start in the first 80 miles of this race, you climb to like 4,800 feet, and then you descend. It's called the Glass Elevator into the Mojave Desert. And I don't know.
Did you say desert?
Yeah, 2 of them.
Yeah, I thought you said desert.
Yeah, in June, by the way.
Yeah, and I think the Mojave is like right around where they run like the what is it, backwater, like 130 or something. It's a 100-mile race.
Okay.
That's like one of the hardest 100-mile races in the United States.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah.
Because it gets up to like temps over 120 degrees.
Yeah.
And so you come back down through this thing.
Yeah, literally 550 miles roughly of this race is through Arizona. It's through the Mojave, and I don't know if it's Sonoran. I might be pronouncing that wrong, but it's both those deserts. So
you own those in the daylight, like the heat of the day. Those guys are riding through that.
Oh, yeah. Day one, I will be dropping into the Mojave Desert and dealing with 115 to 120 on average.
Yeah.
So
midday heat.
Yeah, that's going to be, that's going to be the heavy hitter, if you will, of this race. And quite frankly, so it starts with not only the raw racers, the guys going across the West, but it also starts with the Ram racers, which to me is incredible because I get to rub elbows with the best in the world at what I'm trying to accomplish, right?
Yeah, so the Ram racers, so you guys know, like we talked about before, is the race across America. So
correct.
The start line has 2 races starting at the exact same second.
Yeah.
They've got...
no, it's not at the exact same
But, I mean, they space you out like a minute a guy or whatever it is. But so they're starting at the same time.
Yep.
And... so some of these guys are racing from San Diego,
Oceanside to Annapolis, Maryland.
Or Oceanside to all the way to Maryland.
It's like 3,000 miles.
And they go right through Durango.
Yeah.
And everybody else is racing across the West to Durango, Colorado.
Correct.
So either way, like
it's the same route.
Yeah, and so when you're passing somebody, you won't know if they're a race across the West,
or when I'm getting past,
or race across America, or when you're getting past.
Correct.
You know? I bet you put air in your tires this time.
You're damn right I will.
Probably twice.
Probably pop the bitch, just trying to fill it up. But so that to me is going to be the most intimidating part because no matter who does what race, the raw or the Ram, that is the highest success of failure is that first 1,000 miles. Because of the desert heat. And the mountains they definitely play into it. But after you leave Colorado, you're in Kansas for a day, and then you're in Illinois.
Yeah, you're passing cornfields.
It's not until West Virginia before you get back into really tough. Don't get me wrong. I can't imagine 6 days straight riding and then hitting another mountain, the Appalachians. Yeah. But that's not what we're doing, thankfully. But we'll see. But at the end of the day, the heat is going to be, having that managed is going to be imperative to whether or not we're going to be successful or not.
So you plan to go out there and acclimate a couple of days before?
I have 3. Thank God for my boss. He's awesome. He's given me off for like 3 weeks. So I'm taking off about 12 days before the race. I'm going to go stay with a buddy in Phoenix, and I'm going to go ride for 3-4 days prior to, and then I'm going to head to San Diego for a day or two, and then up to Oceanside and meet the crew there. A couple days before the race.
Yeah, dude, it's wild, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving parts, that's for sure. But it's exciting.
Parts.
It's exciting.
So, this is. I just think it's super fascinating. Like what you're trying to do is on my bucket list. Something I've dreamed of. You and I have talked about the dream for both of us to ride
numerous times,
to eventually ride across America as a part of this race.
Absolutely.
And you're about to do the first third of that. A little more than a third of it, really.
A little less.
Yep. Yeah, it's a little less than a third. And I mean, like, I would be so nervous about,
it's intimidating.
Like how I'm going to train for it and everything. So you've got the acclimating in Arizona. Do you have any other like plans to heat train or to, anything else that you're going to try and train for the elevation or any other aspects prior to that acclimation period?
No, not really. I mean, this last year I was able to go play in Colorado for a couple of weeks, and I learned some things about elevation and what my body can handle. And I was climbing a little bit higher than 8,000. I think I took out a couple.
Talk about the 2 climbs, because you climbed the 2 highest points in the United States, right?
Right. Well, cyclable. Yeah. I mean, paved roads. So
it's cyclable roads.
Yeah. It was Pikes Peak and Mount Evans. So, I mean, both of those, 14,000 plus. So a really good learning experience. And that's kind of the reason I did it. I meant to do it last year, and work kind of got in the way, and I wasn't able to. But then this year I got the opportunity to do it. And it's kind of what triggered the definitive, we're going to do the raw, after the success of Pikes Peak was always been my, I don't know, a bucket list endeavor.
Dude,
that's
talk about pedaling Pikes Peak once, because there's warnings when you do it about like on the descent, you got to stop because your brakes heat up and all this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's just intimidating when you look up at Pikes Peak. You can't see the top.
It's so much
bottom.
fun. Yeah,
and it's what, 22 miles or something.
No, it's not even that. It's like 16.
Yeah, and you climb. What's the elevation gain? Because you start at like
almost
6,800
or something like that. It started at like, I think you start at 6 and you go to 14. So it's like 7 or 8,000 that you climb, and you do that over less than 20 miles.
Yeah, so you're doing like 500 feet of elevation a mile.
Right,
400 to 500 feet of elevation a mile.
Yeah, it was substantial.
Stupid.
I thought leaving the gates. So there was I got there, I don't know, I think it opens at 7, and I got there at 6:30, and I was talking to a couple of guys from Chicago actually that were out there about to tackle it for their first time, and I could tell they were way better cyclists just by talking to them. Like, holy shit, you guys, I'll see you at the top, maybe whatever. But I'm just kind of sitting there waiting. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna take off like a bat out of hell. This wasn't about a time thing for me, but my ego doesn't allow me to just chill. I wanted to.
Well, and you can't chill when you're pedaling uphill. Like, you're probably in your easiest to pedal gear, and you're just like,
and you're just dogging, right? And like, I got to, you turn the first corner after you enter the gate, and you're like, all right, this isn't so bad. And then you turn that corner, and you're like, holy shit. For the first mile, like, it is, I mean, it's got to be 12-14% gradient, which it's pretty steep.
What is the max gradient?
I think it's like 18.
Okay,
I think it's 18, and that was the last couple of miles that settles in, which is fucking brilliant. But that first mile, I remember I got a mile and a half in, I had to stop. And I'm like, and I didn't go out in there, in the best shape.
And there's a lot of concerns. Like, there's altitude sickness and all that stuff that are potential issues.
Right. Yeah. So, I just got up there and I tackled it, and a mile and a half in, and I'm like, boy, this is going to be a long day, and it turned out to be, I think I did it like 3.5 hours or, 3 hours and 40 minutes or whatever it was. But it was, the whole time, it was just super aggressive. It was super difficult. You can't even take in how pretty it is, how beautiful like your surroundings are, because you're just.
And the descent, you're hanging out for dear life.
The descent was fun as fuck. It was so much. I was passing cars. They're getting so mad.
Dude, it's got to be scary. Like,
oh, it was. I was going over 40 on a descent. And there's no rails. I hope Mom's not watching this, because she'd kill me right now. But
and she will be.
Yeah, for sure. But no, the descent itself was like 40 minutes, and it was just, I didn't pedal. There's one part near the top where you have to go back uphill. You go downhill and back uphill or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was like 40 minutes of just coasting at 30 to 40 miles an hour, and switchbacks. I became a much more technical rider after that descent.
Dude,
I can feel it here in Wisconsin, just going down some sharp turns.
Yeah, you turn corners way faster than I do.
And it's all because I had no choice but to learn really quick.
Yeah.
Between that, and then I did Mount Evans, a couple days later, which nowhere near as aggressive, but equally as beautiful. And
actually higher.
Yeah, about 15 feet higher.
Yeah.
And you're at elevation. So I think that's probably the most important point in talking about elevation and understanding what my body can do is Pikes is really aggressive. But Mount Evans, you're at elevation. You're at 13,000 feet for like 10 miles.
For a long time.
Evans is like a 30-mile trip.
Evans is a way better gauge of how your body will handle elevation.
Absolutely.
Because you've got to just put out power.
Because you're hanging out at it for an hour.
Yeah.
For an hour at elevation instead of just straight up. Which I just got done meeting with a guy who's done the raw 4 times. He's the only guy ever to do raw, what I'm trying to attempt 4 times. And then he did Race Across America last year. And he told me, he's like, you're never going to be in a situation where it's like super steep. Even though you're dealing with mountains, you're going to be on hills that are 10 miles,
they push
20
you
miles.
Through at like 4 or 5% grade.
It's 2% the average throughout the whole thing.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's not as aggressive as I think a lot of people might think.
Yeah, I was more concerned about its aggressiveness. So that's good to know.
Yeah. So it's more elongated. All the hills are, which I was happy to hear too, especially when it comes to that heat, because when we climb in Arizona, when you climb into Flagstaff, that's a pretty big peak. That's like 7,000 feet.
Yeah.
So you're in the desert climbing 6,000 feet.
In the heat.
You don't want to be.
Yeah. A lot of dudes hit that at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I've looked at it. I'm like, that's stupid.
Yeah. So Yeah, it's one of those things. The heat is the biggest concern. You know, the altitude, I feel like I'm pretty comfortable with, and there's not too much concern there. But
well, and you've tested your cycling there. Like, you've never been able to test your cycling in the heat.
Not 150
And I mean, like,
degrees,
the only thing you could do would be, like, turn your house up to 100 degrees.
Yeah, which I'm not doing. I'm going to suffer once, and that's going to be there in the race.
And
the
turn,
week
like,
prior.
2 heaters on in the room and just have them blasting you in the face.
For
like,
sure.
You know, here's what this feels like, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, and bringing in a coach. So you know, Brian McWilliams is a local coach,
and he was
local
on
athlete.
one of the podcasts.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't heard Brian's episode, I forget which number it is exactly.
It's early on. I mean,
go check it out.
He's incredibly talented dude. I mean, he's not only educated, he's supremely educated, but he's a hell of an athlete himself.
Yeah.
He's laying the blueprint for me. So I feel that as long as I stay true to that, you know, at a 95 or 98% clip, right, of all of the things that he lays out for me, I feel like physically we're going to be fine. You know,
dude, and he's already gotten enormous gains for you, like ridiculous.
Yeah,
gains.
for me, they've been big. You know, because I've never been I've never been with a coach. I've never, you know, done anything over and above as far as the training
and he
itself.
He got you to do something I've been asking you to buy forever.
Yeah,
which is a power meter.
You got
right?
me on power, yeah.
Because then you can actually see and track true progress.
For sure.
And look and see, is Bobby pushing himself?
Right. Yeah.
And that's why he makes you like pedal with single legs and things like that. So that you can learn like how to use the full pedal stroke.
Right.
You know, things that I hate doing, but are the only ways to be successful. And Brian knows this. And what makes Brian, I think what makes him a remarkable coach, a great coach, is the fact that he knows what needs to be done, but then he's got a way of delivering that to you in a manner that makes you go out and put in the hard work and effort.
It makes you want to prove him proud.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of, it's almost like mom or dad in a sense. I mean, and that's what you hire a coach for, is to the accountability,
to be your mom or
right?
dad.
Right. Yeah. So the accountability aspect's huge, but he doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. You know,
exactly.
his demeanor is excellent in that regard, because you never know what he's thinking. Like,
dude,
is he happy?
Don't do something,
is he mad?
If you don't do something, you can just feel the disappointment.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because he expects the best out of you every day.
Correct.
And for you to give him the best effort possible.
I agree.
And that's what I love about Brian. Like, I've never used Brian as like a dedicated coach, but he has been more than helpful to me, and I have no choice but to credit him with much of my success.
Yeah.
From little pointers that he has given me. You know, it's not a fact that he wants me to give him the credit, but it's a fact of like, there's times where Brian has held me accountable and given me little pointers out on a bike ride where I'll go ride with him.
Right.
And he'll, you know, hey, adjust this and you'll be great. And he's done my bike fits for me, and he's the guy that I go to for numerous questions and things that I have. You know, and he's just a great person because he genuinely cares about you as a person and how you're going to come out of this. And he knows that, like, this is more, doing the Raw is more than just a cycling event, right?
Right.
It is going to change who you are as a person, because you're going to find limits during that race that you had never found before, and you're going to break through those.
Absolutely.
You know, and on top of that, you're doing it for something bigger than yourself. You know,
yeah,
and so talk about the motivation to do it for something bigger than yourself.
Well, it's funny, you know, you draw these things up, you know, whether it's at a bar or, you know, in your bed laying in bed at night, you just think up these things like, well, what are we going to do? And, you know, how am I going to focus? And when you start, it's a personal goal. You know, and it is just about you at that very moment.
Absolutely is a personal goal.
Yeah.
Or you couldn't sign up.
At that moment, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you realize pretty quickly that, you know, you read all these articles and all these successful guys that do the Raw or the Ram, well, they're like 100% you need a coach, right? So you bring a coach on board, right? And then you know that you need a crew. So you organize the crew, you get that together, and it's just like, well, shit, this ain't about me anymore, right? So it's just now you have a crew, you have a coach. And then it dawns on you like, well, all these guys, they raise money. You know, there's a platform here. This isn't your run-of-the-mill Century anymore. Like, you know, people fundraise for these things. There's millions of dollars. Everybody that does this raises money for a charity because it's off the beaten path. And again, it's a touch crazy.
And it's not about you.
And it's,
you know,
that's exactly what I'm getting at is, so you bring on, for this example, Fourth Who of Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
I've partnered with them. We've partnered with them.
Yeah.
To raise money to, you know, for veteran veteran awareness, or as far as the veteran
Like
suicide
you've been
awareness.
the top fundraiser at that event, at the Ruck March event, for 3 or 4 years in a row.
As
now.
a team, we have been.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's not a better feeling than that. So as this thing starts off as just this personal goal that I want to do, and then you bring in a coach, you bring in a team, and then you start bringing in a charity, and you start raising money, that almost trumps the race. Will, I'm serious. Like,
dude, doesn't it though?
The fact that you know that, and I don't want to make it sound like it's bigger than it is, but the fact that you know that,
but it is bigger than it is.
If you raise $5,000, if you raise $10,000, whatever you raise, you're going to be changing some lives, and maybe not permanently. But maybe Jason at Apex can buy another furnace for Operation Cold Snap.
Exactly.
Maybe there's Christmas presents underneath the tree for a veteran that's fallen on hard times that wasn't there. When that happens once, there's no looking back. There's no turning back from that feeling. And now there's 2 goals, right? We need to start in Oceanside, and we need to get to Durango. But more importantly, we need to raise these funds, and 10,000 is the goal. It's an aggressive goal, but I think we're going to be able to do it.
And that's what happens, right? I made this statement a couple times leading into the world record, and I meant it more than everything, and I'll mean it for the rest of my life. When I started the world record journey, right, I had a fundraising goal, and I had this goal of inspiring people, and I had this goal to achieve the world record, right? And ultimately, when I first started, the goal, I felt like my goal had to be to achieve said world record. And then that goal kind of disappeared, right? My desire to achieve the world record kind of disappeared, and it became more of a, can I raise the funds? Like, I want to raise all this money, and can I inspire a bunch of people? And I was like, so what was one goal at one time turned into 2 completely different goals that meant way more to me than the one goal had ever meant and will ever meet and mean to me. Like,
absolutely,
my goal was to raise my goal turned into goals of raising the maximum amount of money and then inspiring as many other people as I could to get out there and change their lives and cause change in the community, right?
Absolutely.
So, like, people are like, you can't change the world, you can't change the community, blah, blah, blah. Like, if you want to change, you got to be the president or something.
Oh, the old naysayers, huh?
And I'm like, bullshit. If you want to cause change, you can cause change tomorrow, because what you can do is that if you're going through a McDonald's drive-through, you can buy the person behind you's breakfast, lunch,
doesn't
dinner.
matter what you're doing.
You could help somebody load their groceries into their car.
Hold the door.
Exactly. Things that nobody does to create change. Right. And I was like, right now, whether you like it or not, I'm creating change.
Yeah.
And it's not about me achieving a world record, because, like, to me, I could give, like, that is not even on the top 10.
It's pretty badass.
It is, but it's not even in the top 10 things that I consider accomplishments in my life.
Right.
Right. The accomplishment from that day is the fact that I know that I inspired over 100 people to go out and achieve something. And something that I'm super proud of is I know that me breaking that world record inspired somebody who was trying on the Marine Corps birthday, who was a Marine or is still a Marine, but he's no longer actively a Marine, right? Because once a Marine, always a Marine.
Yep.
This man is going to go try and break the record that I set. Like, that to me is winning, right?
If you don't do that, he's not training his ass off.
Yeah, because
whether he wins or loses,
he's out fundraising right now, trying to raise money to break a world record that is currently owned by me. Like, most people are like, you should be mad that this guy wants to break a record. And I'm like, I'm so happy. Like, he's going out and he's causing a difference in his community.
Absolutely.
And the one thing that I challenge people listening today is, what are you doing to create and change our community to make it better? And by our community, I mean this world. Like, what are you doing to affect change in this world to make it better? Like, Bobby over here is going to go ride 900 miles to raise some money to help some veterans. Like, that's creating change.
But I can tell you, for anybody that's never done, any fundraising or strive, maybe there's been enough naysayers in their life where they're like, maybe they're too timid to do it.
Tell me I can't, man.
Yeah,
tell me
exactly.
I can't. Oh,
but I tell you what, the one day you're going to do something and you're going to get that one message from somebody that you barely know, or that maybe you looked up to back in the day or whatever, and they are going to say something that changes your life. Because similar to when you raise funds and you feel that feeling of giving back, when somebody reaches out to you personally, and it's mano a mano, whether it's Facebook Messenger, text message, phone call, whatever it is, and they're like, hey, I'm doing this because you did this. Again, There's no turning back from it, because that, again, is the best feeling in the world. I think a lot of people,
addictive, man.
a lot of the naysayers look at it as like, oh, you're just trying to get notoriety, or, no, I'm not biking 930 miles for you to pat me on the back.
Yeah, if you were, you would be posting it on Facebook every day.
Yeah,
like I used to post on Facebook every day. Like I would check into Experience Fitness, checking in, and now I'm like, now you will get to see my results, and I will show you the hardest workouts that I do, so that you can see like I'm putting in the time for your donation.
And that's the reason. I mean, that's a big part of why I post every couple of weeks, just like some of my longer rides.
Yeah.
But I don't, I'm working out 6 days a week. I'm not posting a lot of it, because it's not relevant. It's not about the pat on the back. It's about people knowing that I'm working my ass off. So when you donate $20 or you donate $100,
you're holding me accountable.
You know that we're gonna get this thing done. Right? Yeah. Barring some kind of crazy scenario in the desert, right? We're going to get this shit done, but you need to know that I'm working, and that I'm not just going to do this as some,
Exactly. Somebody who's just, hoping to get 10 miles. Like, I'm going to give it my best effort for your donation.
And thank you to all the naysayers, because boy, I tell you what, you want to talk about what you think about at 300-400 miles in? I haven't been more than 400 miles. But goddamn, I love those people, because I get negative, and then I draw off a negative, and then the negative people come in my mind, and I draw off of them.
Dude, it makes me so happy.
Thanks.
Like, honestly, like
this next 20 miles of pedal turns is for you.
Yep, exactly.
I love that. I love
it.
Dude,
it's what's pushed me to so many things is the people who told me that I couldn't do it. Like when I told people I was going to start a podcast, they're like, "There's no way do you do that. Like you're not going to get any listeners, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, I'm going to do it because I can, and because it's going to inspire other people that want to listen to it. And I don't care if I had 2 listeners or 2,000. Like, it doesn't matter to me. It's about the one person whose life I can change, because they hear a story about, whatever it might be, be it alcoholism, be it cycling, be it running, whatever it is.
That's the beautiful part about your podcast, is because we're talking about cycling. So a lot of people, tonight we are, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people aren't going to...
This might not relate.
They're not going to relate.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I'm okay with that too. But I can tell you that I couldn't relate to a lot of the others that were on your podcast, but I find absolutely inspiring. There are so many people that have come on this podcast before me that I just find is absolutely brilliant, and I have no relation to, right?
Yeah, dude, and
it's inspired me to be tougher, more mentally resilient, right?
Dude, absolutely.
Because everything that I've done in life is not even close, in my opinion, to what a lot of these people have been.
Dude, and you've done crazy stuff, right? How long did you spend in Iraq?
Yeah, I mean, 9.5 months, I guess.
Yeah, in Iraq, right? In a combat zone.
Right.
So, beyond, like, if we move the combat zone aside, 9.5 months away from your family in a foreign country where you get limited phone and internet access and all that stuff, right? Like, that is a tough thing to go through.
Absolutely. But just in comparison, it's just one of those things for me. So, but I'm on this podcast because I know I can relate to a few people, and a few people can relate to me.
Dude, absolutely, man. And it's more than a few.
And I know that I'm also on it because of how brilliant those before me that came on this were,
Yeah.
And how motivated I was just by hearing their story. It's incredible. So you guys are doing a bang up job with the podcast. Yeah, and Forever Unbreakable brand. It's awesome.
It's all about a lot of it is about the naysayers. Like the naysayers are some of my favorite people.
Me too.
Because they will get you the extra oomph more than your biggest fans will get you. Is because the last thing you want to do, like, it's almost easier to let somebody down that loves you and cares about you, and and they're going to be like accepting of it, right?
Well, they're still going to love you. They know they're still going to care about you.
And your naysayer is going to rub your face in the dirt and say, "I told you so." And I'm like, I want to be the one telling you,
not today.
I told you so. So I think it's important, and this is one of the things that I tell people is, in a very firm belief of mine, is that if you're going to do something stupid, if you're going to do something big, you need to make it public. Tell the world that you're going to do it.
Absolutely. You taught me that.
I was beyond afraid to tell the world that I was going to try and break a world record, right?
Yeah.
I started the world record journey 17 months before my attempt.
For sure.
With a plan of doing it 5 months after I started. And I wasn't ready. I couldn't do it. So I never made an announcement. I just didn't do it, right?
Right.
Check. Not doing it. And then I waited till 2 months before to tell the world that I was going to do it. And my biggest regret is that I didn't tell the world 17 months before when I said I was going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's why I've kind of like been trying to force you into like the release of the Raw.
Absolutely.
And the Raw will be released before this comes out, but not by more than a few days.
Yeah, it'll coincide pretty close.
It's going to come out with the podcast. So I will have the link on here to get to Bobby's page.
Yeah, awesome.
Please go out and donate. And I think it's important that we talk about, some of the guys who are helping you out and sponsoring and helping financially so that you can actually go out, and raise more money for the organization.
Absolutely.
So talk about that a little bit.
Well, let's start with Forever Unbreakable. I mean, they're my main sponsor. We got a close tie, a close buddy, and what you and Chelsea have started and what you guys are building, I think is incredible. So I'm honored to be part of it,
Dude,
and I thank you for that.
I'm honored to have the opportunity.
It's gonna be fun. I'm glad we're able to work together on it. And then we have Chris Herman's Construction, which is Chris has been a good buddy of mine for a long time, and I'm excited that he was on board. That was the first check that was ever cut to me for a sponsorship, and
Dude, there was no questions asked.
I saved the Snapchat that I sent to him so I can look at it years down the road here. That was a cool day. It was a cool day knowing that somebody's going to put some money behind you as a person, as an athlete, as somebody striving to do something, right?
Yeah.
Something a little bit bigger, and so that was cool. So I really appreciate Chris. Of course, Brian McWilliams, who's been an awesome coach.
Awesome.
And I look forward. He's going to come with next June, so I'm going to have him in my back pocket.
Which is the biggest.
It's so huge.
Asset you can bring with you.
Yep. And then the crew guys. So I got little Richie and Josh who did the Minnesota race with me, which. These guys have been longtime friends and just gems. They did a bang-up job as we were all rookies in Minnesota in 2016. And then my other good buddies, Ben and Doug, who are both military guys.
Yeah.
So they bring that mindset.
Doug.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've met Ben, too. They were both the scuba certified this year.
Yeah.
They'll be up next weekend for the ruck. But either way, having those, I can't tell you how appreciative I am of my crew guys and my coach. All the sponsors, all those, anybody that's going to donate is hugely, hugely important. But the guys that are going to be with me and kind of carry us as a team, I can never thank them enough. We're not even there yet, and I'm already getting a little soft. Man, these guys are awesome. It just.
Dude, but that's what happens,
it's about,
man. That's what happens.
And that's the relationships that I touched on earlier, is how they continue to build. And even though they're my boys, Brian wasn't my boy, but he's slowly becoming my boy, and how important he is to our success as a team. Those are the type of relationships that are just fantastic.
Yeah, and it is critical to success.
Without them,
relationships are critical to success.
Without them, I can't do anything. Yeah.
So, all right, let's head to the last question here.
Yeah.
What makes Bobby unbreakable? I mean, you've done, from mountain biking 100 miles,
right,
to 400-mile bike rides, signing up for a 900-mile bike ride, Pikes Peak, Mount Evans. You've done all these things, and we didn't even talk about deploying to Iraq and learning there in basic training and becoming an infantryman. And all of the other stuff that you've done in your life and been wildly successful in multiple aspects. But what makes Bobby unbreakable?
A lot of it's going to stem from that military experience. I think the mental toughness. In basic training, I learned new limits physically, right? But it teaches you so much more mentally. Just the mental toughness you get from the military has always, since then, has transpired into where we are today. I would say that the mental aspect of these races are going to be way harder than the physical.
Dude, definitely. 900 miles on a bike is way more mental challenging than physical.
I had the pro that I met with myself and my coach a couple of weeks ago say, your muscles are only going to get so tired. Whether it's 20 hours in, 40 hours, 80, it doesn't matter. Yeah. They're only going to get so tired.
Yeah, because this race is 90 hours or something?
92 hours.
92 hours.
And he said, he flat out told me, he's like, you're going to be a 3-year-old at times. He's like, you're going to turn into a 3-year-old, get pouting, trying to get off the bike. So I like to think that that's my strength, is my mental toughness and my ability to turn a pedal, to carry on, right, to complete the mission.
Yeah. Dude, that's huge right there, to complete the mission.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we have 2 goals. We want to raise 10 grand for Forthua. We want to finish this race. Somehow mentally we're going to have to get it done. And that's I'm going to learn a lot about who I am. And, one day maybe I can sit on this podcast again and tell you, hey, I am that tough.
So you are going to sit on this podcast, and I'm going to add a third goal to your goal list.
What's that?
Because it was the third goal that I stumbled upon, and probably the most rewarding goal of the world record. And now it's the only focus of the podcast.
Okay.
And that is to inspire others.
Yeah, man.
And I
can get behind that.
And I think that is the third goal that will cause the greatest change in your life. More than the, money raised and the accomplishment of the actual goal. The most meaningful thing I think to you will be when you're getting the messages of the level of inspiration you provided somebody and how they now went out and bought a bicycle and are beginning their cycling journey.
Yeah.
With their first 20-mile ride. When they're the Daniel Doyen who is going out on his first 20-mile ride
right.
without, pedals and the original bike seat and
yeah.
doesn't own bike shorts and show up in gym shorts
yeah.
and all that stuff. And like when you get to be that person's inspiration, which you're gonna be to multiple people, you're inspiring me. Your 400-miler inspired me. This ride it's inspiring me beyond belief. And I think that once you start to grasp that as a goal, it's going to add more fuel to your fire. And I think that it will be your biggest accomplishment of that journey will be the number of people that you inspired along that road when you look back at it. Because that to me is my greatest reward today.
Well, I can something I definitely can get behind, and I look forward to the opportunity because given the opportunity, I'm going to run with that as well. So I appreciate that heads up.
It's going to be there. You have the platforms now, and I'm glad that you're getting out and starting to about to start pushing the word of what's going to happen here. So
it's going to be fun.
You guys got to
be a ride. It's going to be fun.
Make sure to look Bobby up on Facebook, whatever you're using, and check him out. Follow his story. Follow his journey. We'll be getting updates on the Hua page. I'll have updates on the Forever Unbreakable page, along the way and stuff like that. And I think it's important that people follow. It's going to be a remarkable journey. It's going to be super cool to see, and I promise that Bobby will show you the downs as well as the ups. So when he's miserable, it'll be captured, and you guys will get to see it.
For sure,
that shows a lot of the picture.
You'll see it all. So I appreciate it. Get out there and donate. Thank you for having me on, Will. I really appreciate it. Keep it up, man. It's been great. A lot of fun.
I had a blast. You got anything else you want to put out?
Nope, not at all. Thanks again for everything.
All right, dude. Well, we're going to have you back on as soon as the race is done and I'm back home. So.
Sounds good. Hopefully I can bring some hardware.
Yeah, I guarantee you'll have some hardware. All right, guys. You take care. And remember to stay unbreakable. We're out.